Anyway, you look great and I can hear you perfectly. So that's the good news.
That's good. Yeah, we might have to go to YouTube, but let's just check it out. See, the thing is, I can't tell until we are live. Oh,
That's great.
good.
Isn't that nice?
Fabulous. Okay.
Wow. Not only can I see you, I can now see myself I can see a reflection of you in my glasses. Beautiful. Really an amazing, wonders of modern technology. Can you hear me all right?
Right now I can. Hi, Mark Baldrich. Glad that you're on. Hi, Maria Schaefer. Glad you're here.
Oh, I can't see all these things that you're seeing. Hey, Maria.
Oh, my goodness. Yep. Well,
Here we are.
here we are. Okay.
Sunday morning, September 20th, 2020. What a wonderful year this has been, hasn't it? I mean, seriously, it's just of all the years. Yeah, what a wonderful year. Or the Sinatra thing, Da 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 da. That was a very good year.
You're entertaining the people right now.
While you're
I'm looking for stuff.
you're whatever you're doing there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hello.
Does that mean I have to leave right now? Oh no, I'm
No.
not joking.
No, it does not mean you have to leave.
Well, you scared me when you said gentlemen.
Oh, no. You're a gentleman.
Thank you very much.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Hi, Connie Olson. Mwah. I keep meaning to call you. Again, still technical difficulties. And we'd come on early, but still the technical difficulties go over. But anyway, I'm so tired of saying that at the beginning of these.
Is that what you usually say at the beginning?
I have been the last week or two because there's been technical difficulties, but I don't want to continue on that line. I want to say good morning to the people coming on and Bradley Young, who's my guest today. Bradley and I are friends and musical cohorts, and we won't really go there today, but he and I actually have this relationship where we can send each other whatever political video we want, and it's fine. And there's not a lot of people like that, actually. In fact, I really believe you are the only one that
Seriously?
I can send anything to. I can send both sides.
Absolutely.
And you're like, okay, yeah, or whatever, and you send that to me. Most of my friends are one side.
Me too.
Whichever side, some friends are this side, some friends are that, but it's kind of, that's what they want to get.
I would say that for me, most of my friends are on one particular side.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a core group of a very small group of friends that are not even, forget red or blue or Democrat or Republican. It's maybe just that I have a very small group of friends that are even interested in questioning stuff. We've even talked about that. When this whole thing started, I posted a few things, and it wasn't like I was saying, I believe this, and anybody that disagrees with me is wrong. I was just saying, is this something we should consider as a possibility? Is this scenario even worth considering, or is it plausible? And I basically got yelled at and screamed at. And, so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to take all this stuff down because it's too, people were getting upset. And, we've seen now it's that I took all that stuff down 4 months ago, and it's just got exponentially worse with all the yelling and screaming. So, I just have a small, bringing that question or statement that you made full circle, is that I have a small group of people that I still send things to privately. And then, of course, you're included in that group where, I know that you're not going to go off on me, you'll come back with some witticism, or you'll say, what does this spell? ARRGGHH, like, so I get that from you sometimes, and from a lot of people, it's kind of like, well, what are you supposed to do with all this information? And, I don't think many of us really know anything. I think a lot of us have ideas, we have thoughts, we have a lot of questions, maybe we have theories. I'm just one of those guys that likes to, I was always that way though. When I was a kid, question everything, I never take anything at like face value. Like when someone tells me something, I'm always like, okay. I mean, unless it's something really obvious, like there is a God. But
well, that's obvious to you.
That's obvious, of course. But no, I mean, I like to question stuff, and some people don't. And then to be yelled at for just suggesting that maybe the official narrative about all of this stuff that's going on. I thought we weren't going to talk about this anyway.
Well, we're not exactly.
We're not exactly. We're sort of alluding to something here.
We're talking about it, but we're not talking about specifics. But
right.
But which I think is deserving of right now because of.
You said it.
So incredibly intense, and I mean, I even was up the other night at 3 a.m, and I happened to come across this Showtime thing that was made by Stephen Colbert, which some people go, oh, Stephen Colbert, I hate him. And and anyway, it was a cartoon, and it depicted both Trump and Biden in not the best light, and it was funny. It was funny as shit. And so I was actually glad I saw it, Oh,
I wish you would send me a link to that. I have not seen that.
It's a show, some Showtime, on TV, but yeah, it's hard to be totally. I mean, it's easy to kind of get afraid and worried, but it's hard not to have humor about it too, because it's just so ridiculous. There's so much of everything that is so absurd and ridiculous, that how does anyone expect us to be normal, normal?
Not that we were ever normal, whatever normal is. I don't think we were ever really that, but before this happened,
the apparency was that we were normal.
Yeah, we were sort of like just living our lives, and things were what they were. And I mean, we all had our individual problems, but this changed everything. And so you're right, and people are so freaked out by it. Whichever of the issues that we're not really talking about, we're sort of alluding to all the stuff that's going on our planet now. And it is hard to have a sense of humor about it. It's extremely hard. People are, everyone's their nerves are frayed, mine included. I mean, I think that every day is sort of I struggle with it. I mean, I have a range of emotions, and every day I can still feel happy and joyful, but I also don't remember a time in my life where I was really this confused.
Yeah.
And with that confusion sometimes comes anger.
Yeah.
And sometimes, a little depression.
Yeah.
So, and then in order to bounce back from that, it's like where you have to figure out some way to see and it would only be gallows humor, I imagine, because it's none of what is going on is funny, but you have to figure out some way to distance yourself from the reality of the fact of how really crazy and perhaps terrifying things are. And so I mean, you know, like I could give you an example. Like here's a joke that someone just told me that would be an example of something that like it's about, okay, it's something that you would never really joke about, but I'm going to tell this joke anyway, and I'll bet you're going to get some comments, and people are going to be, Bradley, how dare you? But I'm going to go for it anyway.
Okay.
So there's these two Jewish guys.
Don't get close to your mic.
Oh, I'm distorting. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's these two Jewish guys, these are older Jewish guys, and they decide they're going to kill Hitler, and they know exactly where he's going to be at midnight on, you know, whatever date this was in like 1943. So they go there and they're waiting for him. So midnight comes around, no Hitler. 12:15 comes around, no Hitler. 12:30 comes around, no Hitler. One guy looks at the other, he goes, "Hey, I hope nothing happened to him." Okay, so I mean, this is completely inappropriate. I got it. I'm Jewish, right? It's like everybody that knows it's not a funny subject, but it's sort of an example of what are we supposed to do with all of this information without going completely crazy, you know? And so, yeah, I would love it if you'd send me the link to the Stephen Colbert cartoon.
Okay, I'll try and find it.
Yeah.
Oh. So we can come back to this crazy subject. By the way, Mark Van Aken is here.
Mark
Hi,
Van
Mark
Aken.
Van Aken.
Hey, Mark, what's going on, man?
And Roland Askerin says it's nice to put a face to the name.
You meaning me, I guess, because you guys know each other, right?
Yeah.
He and I are friends on Facebook. You know, that the alternative reality of having friends on Facebook that you actually have never met in person. So, you know, who'd have thunk that would be a possibility before the internet? It would be like, you know, if somebody said to you, if it's like go back 100 years, you know, it was 1920, and someone said, you know, in 100 years, there's going to be this thing called the internet, and you're going to be able to talk to anybody in the world on a little box, and you're going to be able to see them, and probably a lot of people.
You would have thought this is alien stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People would have said, "You're crazy. You've been reading too many Jules Verne books." But so much of that stuff that people like that, Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, so many of those things that they talked about in their books have come true. So, and I think some of the stuff that we're seeing right now is sort of, I mean,
well,
didn't you just tell me?
George Orwell.
There you go.
I read 1984. I wasn't so sure. I was glad I read it. It was kind of disturbing. But anyway, let's talk about music. And you can actually lay back off of the mic because your sound is better. Yeah. Well, that may be a little too far.
Okay. I'm in my office chair, and it's like the most comfortable chair in our apartment. I love sitting here because I can just do. Oh yeah. Let's see. I can pull my mic over here, but then, how's this? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
But I'm much less like I can see myself. It's more like a medium, like almost like a long shot, which may be better for your viewers because, you know, if I do this, it could be rather frightening.
I don't think so.
Anyway, so I'll try to, if I get too close, just remind me. I'm not picking my nose. It's like the Jerry Seinfeld thing, you know. No, it was scratching. So anyway, I'm glad Mark Van Aken is with us. We had such a great time when we did that gig, which seems like it was like, you know, whatever.
I think that was the moment when you and I realized that we could share information. Right?
Well, we hung out a little bit with the members of the yacht club on their boat, and we were chatting about stuff. And this was, of course, before any of this craziness happened. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was maybe the last time that I had actually hung out like that with drinks after the gig.
I know. I think you're right.
Feeling like, yeah, I'm going to drink. That was fun.
It was fun. And hopefully after this is all over, things will eventually we're going to be able to do that again, right? I sure hope so.
Yeah, I usually drink after the gig in Japan. I don't really do that anymore here. It seems like there's, whatever that period of time when you were felt loose and free to hang out for a few hours after the gig at someone's house and drink. That really changed for me. I'm sure people still do it, but in Japan, of course, I'm kind of forced to do that because after the gig is the party. It's,
right.
The people who gave you the gig plan to have a party, and everybody's drinking and eating, and
Sounds great. When are we going? No,
That's what I'd like to know. Good. I just have one more thing to say that's funny. My friend Jocko, who's a bass player from Japan, I don't know if you ever met him. He comes here every January for a month. But anyway, he sent me a Skype message and he said, "So who is better, Trump or Biden?" Okay, I'm just leaving it alone. I'm just going to tell you that.
He asked you that, just like you had that magical answer, who's better?
Yeah, it was funny. It was like, yeah.
It's a great question. It's a little too, it's a little broad to just say who's better. Better at what,
Yeah.
Maybe Trump's a better golfer. Who knows?
So Bradley Young, where are you from, Bradley Young?
I was born and raised in Chicago.
Chicago, Chi-Town.
That's right.
So how was it growing up in Chicago for you?
I mean, it was great back then, but I'm pretty old. I don't know what it's like growing up there now. Seems like Chicago's gotten a really bad reputation. I mean, when I was growing up there were parts of it that were considered not so great, but I grew up in Rogers Park, which was just, the northernmost part of the city before it turned into a suburb called Evanston. And at that time, when I grew up there, I mean, it was great. We lived.
I know Evanston. Isn't that a nice suburb?
Oh, yes. Very much so.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I went to school. I mean, music school. I started studying at Northwestern University, which is located in Evanston.
Okay.
I started taking private piano there when I was 5. So we were really close, which was great. But Evanston was, very, very, parts of it are very posh,
I see. Yeah. My
Rogers
cousin
Park, not so much.
I think my cousin lives there. And so I've been there, but it's been a long time. But it struck me as a really nice suburb. So you did you reach for piano specifically, or did your parents go, "Yeah, I think you should play piano"?
No, I mean, we had a piano, of course, and my dad played, and they used to have parties, a lot of times, friends, family would come, have dinner, and then in those days, you gathered around the piano.
Yeah.
And you sang songs.
Yeah.
So, of course, even when I was little, very little, 2-3 years old, remembering these gatherings of friends and family, and my dad playing and everyone standing around the piano and singing. And so, and they were both, my mom and my dad were both very into music, my dad was mostly into classical music. So they both had vast record collections. My dad was really into opera and symphonic music, and my mom was into, I want to say jazz, but when I say jazz, I mean like big band, because they were born and grew up in the Depression and World War II era. So my mom was into, when I say jazz, I'm thinking more like Artie Shaw, Benny Goodman, Harry James.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stan Kenton, she loved, so I grew up listening to a lot of both classical and jazz.
Yeah.
And then I think, can't remember exactly how it occurred, but, when I was 5, somehow they convinced me, or I wanted to start taking piano lessons.
Wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Because a 5-year-old, can't totally convince a 5-year-old to do something that they don't want to do.
Oh, especially me. Yeah. And I never lost that, sort of part of me that's like, no one's going to tell me what to do thing. But yeah, I guess between me wanting to and being influenced by my dad, who was, pretty good piano player,
Yeah.
I started taking piano lessons. And of course, that meant classical piano. It wasn't like, I started with blues or jazz. That came way later after years of playing Bach and Mozart and Scarlatti and, composers like that.
Scarlatti. I actually recorded a Scarlatti song.
Really?
Yeah, on my Dreamsville record with Larry Kuntz and Josh Nelson. It's called something like L11. Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Beautiful song. And now I heard it. I'm not really a big classical person, but my piano tuner always would play this song after he tuned the piano. And I was gathering music for the project, and I was like, what? That song is so beautiful. And it was in my key, strangely.
So now this is not a song with lyrics, right? I mean,
No. I'll send it to you to, just for fun.
So you scattered it, basically. You just you sing the melody.
Yes, and Larry and Josh took the other voices.
Nice.
It's really very pretty, beautiful song. Just lots of, and Isaac Perlman, was it? No, it was.
You mean Yitzhak?
Yeah,
Yitzhak.
I'm sorry,
Perlman.
I say the name incorrectly. Like I said, I'm not really a big classical person. The man, Horowitz, actually.
Vladimir Horowitz, the pianist.
Yes, he played it really, really exquisitely, like kind of like jazz almost. I mean, he played the real melody, but his phrasing.
I'm sorry. What's the name of the piece? Do you remember?
I think it's L11.
L11. You mean like the letter L-11?
Yes. I'll see if I have it saved on my YouTube stuff. I probably do. And I'll send you a copy of it. It was quite beautiful to listen to him play.
Oh, he's a great composer and sort of sadly one of the guys that is not revered as much as, some of the composers from that era that became much more famous, like Mozart, Scarlatti, yeah, wonderful composer.
Yeah.
Left quite a legacy of great music. Yeah. I would like to hear that. I look forward to sending me the link, or
I'm going to write myself a note. Scarlatti.
There you go. That's what we do.
Yes, we do.
People our age, I have to write myself a note for just about everything actually these days. Because I don't know about you, but my memory,
oh yeah,
it's just not even like.
Oh, forget about it.
Forget about it.
I
Literally.
was talking to Paul Jost yesterday, and we were having a conversation. Like, he would say, that word that starts with a C, and then I'd fill it in, and the same thing back to him. It was just like, oh God, at least we're communicating, but not exactly. Mayita says hello. She says, look at that LP collection. Bill Marcus says hi.
Hey, Bill. Hey, Mayita. Oh, the LP collection. Oh, this. Oh, right. Yeah, that's just a small part of it. I mean, I could start moving the computer around, but I've loved records ever since I was, that was the other thing that my parents, the record collections, we were constantly listening to records, constantly, as opposed to sitting around watching TV,
Yeah.
And when I was very little, before I even started kindergarten, I'd be around all day. My mom would play her 78s, all of the big band swing. And then my dad would come home for dinner, and he took over the phonograph, is what we used to call it, the record player. And he would play, whether it was Rachmaninoff or Beethoven or, you know, Verdi and Puccini. Again, he loved opera, which truthfully, I'm not a huge fan of opera, but I grew up listening to a lot of it. So I'm very familiar with, you know, a lot of the arias. I mean, to this day, like listening to Pavarotti do Nessun Dorma or something like that, and I literally, like, I'll tear up every time. There's certain, you know, that aria, I'm sure. It's just gorgeous.
I don't by name.
Nessun Dorma. Oh, check it out. Write it down. You'll love it. You know it. I'll bet you. If you hear it, you'll be like, of course. It's so famous. Nessun Dorma. Dorma. And I don't know the translation. It's something like When the World is Asleep or something. It's just gorgeous. Anyway.
Oh, thank you. So,
I digress.
You know, it's interesting because the music that I've heard you play is so far from classical, but you must be doing some music, either projects or playing that would bring in the influence because it's so much a part of you.
It's always in my heart and in my ears, in my head. So, I mean, my two favorite composers of all time are Frédéric Chopin and George Gershwin. So it's they were both big favorites of my mom. So, I think George Gershwin's probably my all-time hero. Him and Mickey Mantle. So, but yeah, George Gershwin, and that's not really classical music, but he's always in my head, you know.
It's not classical, but he was definitely influenced.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
What an icon. What an incredible genius he is.
Do you have LPs of Gershwin music or Gershwin playing or?
Oh God. Hundreds.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, of him playing. Well, there's only a few, but of his music, you know, different versions of different pianists and different orchestras doing, whether it's, you know, mostly, unless you're really into his, the more classical side of Gershwin, most people are familiar with him because of all the great standards he wrote, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we could just rattle off, you know, 20 right now, you know.
Yeah.
But, and then most people are aware of Rhapsody in Blue, which is,
yeah.
what are you going to say? But, you know, like the American in Paris,
yeah.
I adore that. Every time I listen to it, and I've heard it how many thousands of times in my lifetime, and every time I hear it, I hear something new, and it always sounds fresh, like it's so exciting. There's something about that piece, just incredible, the energy of it. It's so joyful. And then, you know, pieces that are less famous by him, like the Cuban Overture, which is really great. If you ever heard that one,
I haven't.
You should check it out. And the Second Rhapsody, they're on YouTube. You can easily find versions of different pianists doing the Second Rhapsody. And that one's sort of an acquired taste because it's the thematic material is not immediately so memorable as like the thematic material from Rhapsody in Blue, but after you've listened to it a few times, it's just really, really wonderful. And then of course there's Porgy and Bess. So
of course that.
Yeah.
Which is
What can you say?
Yeah.
So what was the question? Oh, you asked me about classical music and if it's influencing me, and I went off on a Gershwin tangent.
Yeah. I just haven't, I mean, my experience of hearing you, and that doesn't mean hard, you know, I mean, it's just my experience of hearing you live. I just haven't really noticed that so much. And I just wonder if you feel like it comes into your regular playing in the kind of more of the stuff that I've heard you, or it maybe develops in your writing and arranging, or, you know, how it affects you, I guess.
I'm not sure how to answer that objectively. I mean, when I hear myself, I don't hear any like really classical influence. I think that, I played classical from the time I was 5 until I was about 15 years old. And that was a long
time.
Yeah. And then that was when I told my parents that I wanted to stop playing entirely. I wanted to stop taking piano lessons. I just wanted to be a teenager and go hang out with my friends. I mean, after playing for 10 years and having a Jewish mother that, Mom, can I go out and play after you practice? That was so, and it took me quite a while. I was a late bloomer till I felt like I could actually contradict my mom, and like say no. So, by the time I was 14 or 15, I was pretty much done. And I think I just wanted to go hang out and get high.
Yeah.
Basically.
So you did that for a while?
I hung out and got high for, quite a while. I mean, it's still going on. No. Yeah, I mean, I did. And then what really happened was I never left the piano. I didn't want to play classical music anymore. Apparently, this is just how I interpret it looking back, because I started listening to a lot of different kinds of music. First of all, the Beatles had a huge impact on me when I first heard them. And then my older brother was into all kinds of different rock and roll music. And I mean, he didn't even really like the Beatles. He listened to more like Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull and Jimi Hendrix and Cream. And I started listening and really appreciating that music. And then I started just gravitating to going back to the piano and playing by ear to those bands. So it was a whole different thing for me, because it was no longer, classical is all about interpreting what is written down on the page in front of you. It's reading and reinterpreting the composer's piece and sticking as closely or not. I mean, there are maybe some great pianists that can, do slight variations on something that's written, but usually that's what classical musicians do. They're readers. And I guess that was, something that once I got away from that and I was able to just play by ear, which again, we know is the heart, ear, mind connection to the music far more than actually reading it. And that's what pulled me back in to actually wanting to play again.
Yeah.
After I took the break from whenever I was 15 till I was about, 17. And then of course I started listening to not only rock and roll, but somebody turned me on to blues. And that's really when I started like morphing. I just resonated with blues piano, Boogie Woogie.
How old were you? About
17, maybe.
Yeah. And then did you also start going out and seeing blues in Chicago and stuff?
Yes, and I started studying with a really amazing Boogie Woogie and blues pianist in Chicago named Erwin Helfer. And he was great because he was thoroughly grounded in classical music. And but he also had ears, huge ears. So not only did we work on blues and Boogie Woogie, but he would also say, listen to Lenny Tristano. And I was like, who's that? And then I would listen to Lenny Tristano and I'd be like totally baffled. Like I just had no idea why he would tell me to listen to this guy. Now I get it, I just talked to him actually recently. He went through quite a period of depression because of, he's got to be in his early 80s. He's still very busy in Chicago, and he's really revered as like this, really who he is this legendary blues and boogie woogie pianist. And he's an educator as well, just a wonderful teacher. And so I read this article that someone posted online, and I called him and we talked, and he's still doing great. But he went through a rough time. But of course, when COVID hit, all of his gigs went away, and he was a little too old to try to reconfigure like, well, I'll do my teaching online. So he had a really bad time. Anyway, I'm glad he's doing well. I digress. This is what I do. What was the question?
I don't know, but you just made me think. I also spoke to a friend of mine yesterday who's in Cincinnati, and he was a friend of mine when I was young and upcoming here, and when you're lucky enough as a young woman, like in your 20s, jazz singer, hanging out, how we used to hang out and have friends, older men who are not coming on to you. They're your jazz uncle or jazz father or jazz brother. I feel very fortunate for having some people like that in my life. And he was one of those people. Gorgeous singer. He and his brother both have these voices like Bernard Eigner. And they just drove people crazy, wonderful crazy with their voices, Larry Green and his brother Everett Green, and they both live in Cincinnati now. And I was talking to him, and he was keeping really busy before COVID, and which was he's probably around 90, and so slowing down has been kind of been a little detrimental because he's just not as active and thinking and all that. On the other hand, tomorrow, what is today? Today's Sunday. Tonight at 6, David Amram, who's going to be 90 this year,
wow,
has like 10 projects he's working on, and he is technically a bit savvy, and he is going to be doing this.
Oh, David, it's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah. He's going to be doing this Zoom thing because of his involvement with Jack Kerouac. And he wrote a book about it, and he's going to be reading from it. And so
I'm sorry, you're interviewing him tonight?
No, I'm not interviewing. He is starting a consistent session. Joyce, you probably know about this, but he's starting a consistent session where I think he's going to do it every week for 2 hours. I mean, you'll still be able to see it even if you don't see it live. But
on what platform? On what platform? On Facebook?
Zoom. Oh,
on
yeah,
Zoom.
Probably that too. Hi, Pierre. Pierre Chambers is here. Nice to hear from you. Yeah. So, Roland wanted to know if you liked Leon Russell as a pianist.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and Roland, I'm not sure if it's live on Facebook or just on Zoom tonight. I'm not really sure. I think you can, if you go to possibly his page, it will be on there. David Amram. And Joyce, you probably know about it.
It would have to be on some sort of social media because you can't just go on Zoom unless you're invited by the host. Am I not correct in that? So even though he's hosting it on Zoom, there's got to be a place where he's promoting it. And this would probably be Facebook or Instagram, I guess.
Let me see what, let me get my, let me look for it because I'm sure.
And he's been, I didn't know he was 90, but I mean, like I've got several of his record albums and it's just really an interesting musician, really interesting composer.
Very. So here it is. So participate in the free weekly Zoom series documenting the live audiobook recording Sundays starting today. West Coast time 6 to 8. After the reading each week, there'll be an intermission and or special guests followed by a Q&A with the audience. And Offbeat chronicles Kerouac and Amram performing for their historic first ever public jazz and poetry readings in 1957 in New York. So,
You mean there's film of that?
yeah, well,
Film of Jack
Chronicle.
Kerouac and David Amram performing together? I mean, it certainly sounds plausible to me. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I don't know if Offbeat was a recording, but it says on Zoom you can, oh yeah. Well, no, you can watch the live reading of David Amram reading his book off.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought they actually might have collaborated and appeared in a club in New York in 1957 and someone happened to be filming it.
Yes, and also it does say the show will be available on YouTube. I'm gonna post this.
Can you flash it on the screen during our session here, or?
I'm gonna put it into the comments.
Nice.
So this is talking about David Amram and Jack Kerouac, so that you will, if you're interested and you can't, for instance, go to the Zoom tonight. So, and if you want to do the Zoom, Zoom. Okay. All right. So I did that, and then you guys can check it out or not. And getting back to Bradley Young, ladies and gentlemen. So you had told us about your teacher. That's how we got into talking about that. And so he's still going, and interesting. I'd like to look him up too. What is his name?
Erwin, Erwin, Helfer, HEL, F as in Frank, ER as in Robert. And he's got a number of cuts from his various recordings and some video on YouTube. If you type in his name, you can hear him play. Phenomenal. Just wonderful piano player.
Cool. Yeah. So you were studying with him and
for years.
Yeah.
For years.
Developing a love and ability. And then probably you were gigging at the time too, right? You were in your late teens. And
yes, I started doing my first gigs. Yeah. I was probably, I had to be, because I remember on some of the first ones, my dad would actually have to drive me there. So I must be a little bit off in when I actually started doing these things, because my dad would drop me off at the club and then come back and pick me up after the gig.
Oh.
And so that was before I was 16, then when I had my driver's license. And there were all these blues clubs in Chicago. I mean, there still are. But back in the day, just like jazz clubs, there were so many jazz clubs there. Well, there was tons of blues clubs. And Erwin was really the first one that he gave me the initial thrill of, playing in front of people, because it's one thing to study it and practice it at home, but then the first experiences of, let's say, going to one of his gigs and him in the middle of his show saying, and he had this he's a very elf-like guy. He was, 5'2", 5'3", and his voice is kind of like this. So on the microphone, it would be like, and now, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to introduce you to my protege, a wonderful young pianist. Please welcome Mr. Bradley Young. And I would go up there and, and I guess I was already playing fairly well. And, people were looking at me like, who's this little guy, this kid that can play this well? And so that it was, how thrilling it is to be appreciated for something that you do. I think all of us as musicians can admit that it's wonderful. Applause makes you feel really, the endorphins, it just makes you feel really good. So, but it's also the acknowledgement. It was kind of like, well, I don't know if I'm good. And then, having these people react the way they did, I was like, well, I guess I'm pretty good at this. So that also encouraged me and inspired me to keep going and keep studying. And this is going to sound like a non sequitur, but another thing. Remember, I was mentioning about my parents always hosting these parties, and my dad playing.
Yeah.
Well, one of their friends, one of my dad's friends since the Army, his name was Don Manners, and he was a really great piano player. So he would come, and then he would sit down and play at these parties. Now, he was a real jazz player. And I would stand at the side of the piano and I would watch and listen to him. And I was like, oh my God. And then, finally have a few minutes alone with him. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Because I was already playing blues and boogie woogie, which he could do. But hearing him, he could play, like Bill Evans, or he could play a little bit like, let's say, a Hank Jones, or, he really had his voicings, and he was just a really great player. And so he sort of would give me these sort of impromptu lessons, trying to show me stuff that I just was way above my pay grade at the time. I could barely do, 1-4-5, blues. And then I remember one day, there was a knock on the door. The doorbell rang at our house, and I went to the door and opened it, and there was Don holding a huge box of records. And he goes, "Here you go." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." I didn't even know how to thank him. And in that box were records by Oscar Peterson, Art Tatum, Bill Evans, Horace Silver. I mean, you name it. It was just all these great jazz pianists.
Wow.
And that really spun my head around. So he had a brother out here for a long time who I think was a pretty successful musician named Richie Manners. I don't know if you ever encountered Rich Manners.
No, I don't think so.
He did a lot of like commercial work. I think he did like a lot of jingles back in the day. Remember when products used to be sold with a song? So I think he did a lot of that out here. Anyway, so once again, I digress. But Don was definitely a wonderful, wonderful player, and just, never did any recordings, just loved the music. And he was one of those guys that just changed my life. He really did.
Because boy, then you started listening to that box of records, right?
Oh man. Yeah. And he had a little bit of everything in there. I mean, there were 78s, there were LPs. He did give me a lot of Boogie Woogie 78s that I still have, by people like Meade Lux Lewis and Albert Ammons and Pete Johnson. They're like the best. If you like Boogie Woogie, which I'm not quite sure how big of a fan you might be, but go on YouTube and type in Albert Ammons and Pete Johnson. They recorded a bunch of records in 1941. They're like the best boogie woogie duets. So it's four hands. And
let's look at some of that just for fun.
Look at it now.
Yeah.
Okay. I love this. I didn't know you could do this.
Yeah.
Look at that. Amazing. So if you go on YouTube,
yeah.
Well, I see you there. Type in Albert Ammons. So it's Albert Ammons, Ammons. He was Gene Ammons' dad. And
Pete Johnson.
Pete Johnson. It's probably going to come right up because they did all these sides. So if you Boogie Woogie Man, that's the one. Now, unfortunately, I don't think it's a video, but can we listen for a moment?
Yeah, let's listen for a
moment.
moment.
There is a huge fundraising deadline coming up.
Wow, that doesn't look like Pete Johnson. Here we go. Oh, this is it, man. chest. Isn't it great? Oh, there's a picture of them. Yeah. Man, they're killing it.
Totally. Wow. I wonder if this is like, can you see them?
The color stick is
There is some
absolutely
video.
fabulous.
There is some video on there somewhere of them playing together. No, that's not it, but that's a great piece. That's from that same set that came out in 1941. If you type into the search window up there, Kath, type in video. Because I know there is a video of them playing together. No, keep going. I'll know it when I see it. No, they're not going to make it easy for you.
What if it was live instead of video?
Okay.
But maybe not.
Oh, that's it. That's the one, the Boogie Woogie Dream, the first top one. I think it's them playing together.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, and it starts with yeah. Back before they called them music videos, they were called soundies. I'm pretty sure they're in this. Look at that. Incredible. Yep, Albert Ammons and Pete Johnson. So I don't recall. This is great to know that they've got it with the titles, because I've only seen, the clip where they're playing from this film. So that's Teddy Wilson right there and his band.
Okay. Wow. So young. Whew.
Oh, Teddy's another one. Incredible. Okay, so this is how it's like, it's shtick. So you got to wait through this, like, these customers talking about it. Yeah, it's. There's Lena. I think she sings a song.
Yeah, she does, but right now we're gonna.
That's Pete. That's Pete Johnson, and I don't know who the other guy is.
There goes Teddy Wilson and his band.
Yeah, this is crazy. And I'm pretty sure they start to play together.
Isn't that one of the guys?
I'd wash all the glasses in the army if I could just sing once with that band.
Grand.
Yeah, maybe she does do a number with them.
Oh, this must be both of them.
I think so.
Ladies and gentlemen.
He's in a pod,
They were so great together and as
Wow.
individuals.
Incredible. Really beautiful.
Well, the really interesting thing about Boogie Woogie is it's blues.
Yeah.
It's just blues played at an up tempo, right?
Yeah.
And if you listen to it, then you immediately you get this is where rock and roll came from, right?
Yeah.
Because if you listen to Boogie Woogie, you can try throwing in a lyric like Johnny Be Good or Roll Over Beethoven or any of those tunes. In other words, that's where Little Richard and Chuck Berry and the roots of rock and roll, and then leading into Elvis Presley, et cetera, it basically came from Boogie Woogie. Obviously, it's been historically acknowledged, but I don't know that a lot of people like people that are just music lovers, but not necessarily, like musicologists, really, if you grew up listening to Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Fats Domino and people like that, you didn't really probably think, well, this started back in 1937 or 38 with these Boogie Woogie guys.
Right.
So it's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Are you leaving? Was it something I said?
Got to turn on the fan a little bit.
Yes.
Let's see. Mark Baldrich lives in Chicago, and he said, which I didn't actually realize, but he said, were you able to meet Willie Pickens and work with him?
Well, we were both piano players, so we didn't work together, but of course I knew Willie. Phenomenal player.
Uh-huh.
One of the greatest piano players. He people like him and Jody Christian, John Young. There were just a plethora of amazing jazz piano players from Chicago. Eddie Higgins, Larry Novak, who sadly just passed away. He's Gary Novak, his dad. Oh. And Larry had more chops than anybody. I mean, he was just mind-boggling, dazzling.
Wow.
Huh. Great players, great piano players from Chicago.
Wow. So, when did you move from Chicago?
Well, it's an interesting tale. I came from a sort of a strange situation. I went to Berkeley, as did you. And when I got back from Berkeley, I basically was introduced to a guy that was doing a lot of special event work. It was just my destiny to meet this guy. He was a great guy. His name is Alan Kay. Real name, Alan Kaplan. Changed it to K for showbiz. So he was a piano player as well. And I don't remember how I met him. Someone said, you should really talk to this guy. I think this is how it went. And I said, who is he? And, he's very busy. He works all over town. He works all these swanky joints and he goes out with an orchestra. And I said, well, okay. But this was right after I got back to Chicago from Berkeley. So this is like early 80s. And I think I remember calling him and saying, hi, my name is Bradley Young, and everyone's telling me I need to call you and talk to you. And he was like, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a piano player. He said, well, what are you doing right now? And I said, nothing. He goes, why don't you come on over? I'm like, okay. So I drove over there and he answered the door. Nice sort of cherub, just chubby little Jewish guy. And he goes, come on in. We talked for a while, and he's got a beautiful Steinway piano in his living room. And we're talking. He's like, what do you like? And I said, well, I really like, and I rattled off all my favorite blues and jazz piano players. And I mean, I was green, man. I didn't know what was about to happen. So he goes, well, go to the piano and play me something. So I went over and I started playing for him. And while I'm playing, I will never forget looking over at him, and he was sitting across from me on the couch with his eyes closed and his legs crossed. He was really listening to what I was doing, which couldn't have been very much because I was, whatever I was, 21, 22 at the time. So then as soon as I stopped playing, he goes, okay, I'm going to put you to work. And he got me booked on this 6-night-a-week steady at this hotel called the Oakbrook Marriott. And it was five hours a night for 6 days a week. And I don't remember, I think it paid at the time, $125 a night.
Wow.
For 5 hours. But for a kid of 21, 22, so at the end of the week, I was making whatever the math is in quick. What is that, $700 and something?
Yeah.
So, and that's where I started learning how to just basically play not only blues and boogie woogie and, bebop tunes, but also standards. And sorry, I digressed for a moment. So I started doing that in Chicago. It led to me doing a lot of what we called out here casuals. Before I knew it, I was going out with a trio and then a quartet and then a 7-piece band and then a 10-piece band and then a 15-piece, whatever. And so we started doing a lot of that. And I did that for quite a while in Chicago while I was also out busy playing at the jazz clubs. And then I finally just decided I'd had enough, and I'd always wanted to live in California. Always. And a very good friend of mine, who I think John Stewart, the drummer, not the TV talk show host, he and I were buddies. And he said to me one day, he goes, it's in the middle of winter, that business shut down after New Year's because you'd work like mad during December, and then you'd have a big New Year's Eve gig. Almost, I mean, it was always that way. Yeah. Then January and February in Chicago was horrible. It was cold, 10 feet of snow. So most people didn't really plan parties at that time of year. So one year he goes, why don't we get out of here, man? Let's go to California and just hang out for a few weeks. And I was like, great, let's do that. So we booked our airfare. And we first came out here, and I don't remember if it was 1989 or 1990, but I do remember leaving Chicago, and it was like 30 below wind chill and, 8-9 feet of snow on the ground. And you get on the plane, and then 4 hours later, we got off the plane, and it was 75 and sunny. And I looked around, I'm like, this is so bizarre, man. It's so surreal. I'm like, I looked at him, I said, that's it, I'm moving here. And so we started, he moved like pretty quickly. He actually came out here and we rented a house, but I was still commuting back and forth for years. I would literally come out on a Sunday and then go back on a Thursday and then do my casuals, Friday, Saturday, whatever. Yeah. And I did that for years until actually I didn't really move out here full time until 2015.
Oh my God.
I was commuting from 1992 until 2015. I know it's absurd. It's crazy. I think I was insane, literally.
That is crazy. It's good because obviously you were, you did it for a good reason, but wow, I just to actually not know that you were doing that, because I've known you at least that long, right? 5 years.
Oh my God. Well, of course, because when I was doing the commuting thing, whatever year we first met was when you were doing the thing at the Sportsman's Lodge.
Really?
So yeah, it was in the 90s. I'm pretty sure. Ago. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like people were saying, oh, have you been to Cathy Segal-Garcia's jam session at the Sportsman's Lodge? And I said, who's Cathy Segal-Garcia? Because I didn't know you then. And I remember showing up one night and Eddie Oliveri was your keyboard player.
Yeah.
And of course you said, would you like to play? And I said, sure. And then I went over to the piano. I'll never forget. I'm like, oh my God, it's not a weighted action. He had one of these, 3-pound little toy pianos. And I played and I thought I sounded horrible because, I've always had an issue playing toy pianos. But now the way things are, back then, most joints had pianos, and now, like, what are there, 2-3 pianos left in LA?
Yeah. Maybe.
So I remember that though, and you were very kind, and he was really nice, and I think I made it back a few times.
Yeah, I think so.
It was such a great scene and a lot of great players, and the what were they, pelicans or swans when you walk down that path and the water everywhere. I think it was
swans,
right?
Yeah. That, first of all, that place was so iconic, the Sportsman's Lodge.
Right.
And then that jam session, I actually started that because of my boyfriend in between husbands, Harold Bennett, who was a sax player from Texas originally. And he kind of suggested it to me. And so, but I was kind of more of the business person. So I went to the manager, and the manager said, I don't know, do you think it'll work? And I said, absolutely.
Sure.
And in about 6 months, the crowd on Wednesdays was between 50 and 200 people coming in.
Yeah.
And we did it for 7 years there, every Wednesday. It was so good. And everybody, it was just a really good vibe. And it wasn't an uptight session. It was the floor was the stage. So,
yes.
And I was okay about people just coming up. I mean, they'd talk to me and I'd say, yeah, go on up, you know, and
of course.
So lots of really cool things happened there. That was a really good time. Really good.
The 90s was a great era to me. I mean, I just remember that time was just a great time, especially compared to now. You know, but I mean, that was a long time ago and I was young and foolish. You know, just young and foolish. And but I met a lot of great players at that jam session. I mean, that's how I started, you know, networking way before I actually lived here full time. I can't even remember all the players I met there, and in a few other places like Chadney's. Remember Chadney's across from NBC? That was a great room too. It was a great place. Yeah. You know, terrible piano, but you know, what a great meeting George Gaffney there, and Dave Pell, and you know, Bob Cooper, I believe. I mean, like all these really great old school West Coast jazz musicians that were all like my heroes. You know, I love that whole genre. Yeah. So much an iconic part of, you know, when people talk about the history of jazz, I think that the West Coast school somehow in some people's mind is not nearly as important as the contribution of the New York guys. And I don't agree with that at all. I mean, I think that, you know, they're so completely different. I mean, you had this really great hard bop school that came out of New York, and that was a product of the lifestyle. Those guys were really scuffling, you know what I mean? And, you know, they got into a lot of drugs and, you know, there's a hard edge to that sound. Then you listen to West Coast jazz, and I think you're hearing it sounds like California, you know, it sounds like these guys were like hanging out at the beach, and they were doing film scores and television shows during the day and then playing all over these nightclubs at night, and they were driving around in their pink Cadillacs, and they were doing really well, a lot of those guys. And so it's a different sound. It's a happier sound. And I think, you know, some of the guys that are more oriented toward the East Coast sound didn't like that because they resented it. It was like, these guys are, first of all, not to get into the whole racial aspect of it, but a lot of the guys out in the West Coast were white cats and they were making a lot of money. So obviously there was that aspect of it that caused conflict and tension. Although, of course, there were so many there was a different scene happening in California at that time, the Central Avenue scene. So that's where guys like Wardell Gray and Dexter Gordon and Gerald Wiggins and Clora Bryant and Sonny Criss and all of those players came from. Yeah. But it was a segregated scene out here in a lot of ways. You had the white cats doing most of the TV and film work, sadly, and the black cats were doing mostly jazz records. That must have ended at some point, I mean, during the civil rights movement. Yeah, and there was something else, and I forget who I was talking to. It might have been somebody like Nolan Shahid or John Clayton. And there was a particular thing that happened back then, which was they had the unions. They had a black union and a white union. I didn't know that. Yeah, and then but it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, and the black musicians were doing very well in their black union, but there was some point where they decided to merge them, desegregate. Yeah, and then the black musicians didn't do so well. I did not know that. Yeah, because the contractors who had been using the white guys still used the white guys, you know. And so, yeah, I forget who it must have been one of those guys because they're very big on, you know, the history
of it all.
Oh, of course. But I was not aware that there were two unions. That's new information for me.
Yeah. I
Wow.
do know also, and I think the same person told me that actually Pierre Chambers is here. I don't know, Pierre, if you grew up, I mean, I know Paul was your dad, but I don't know if you grew up here or New York or experienced that whole thing very closely. But the other thing was that a lot of the Hollywood stars were going over into into Central Ave and hanging out. And so that.
And you could do that back then, and it was fine. There was no problem.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, the whole mishmash. And I never heard anyone talk about the East and the West Coast in the way of, it reflecting the lifestyle. But of course it had to. Of course. I mean, I remember when I got here and I was, working, and I was young, and I had friends who went to New York, and I had thought about going to New York, but when I was about to go, I met my first husband, Gus Garcia, and stayed. But and then I would observe my friends who we were very similar coming up, like in college, and then we developed different things. And I just always felt like on the East Coast, there was a big wheel turning, and the challenge was to jump on the wheel. And on the West Coast, there was no wheel turning. The challenge was to build it.
Sure.
I really saw a difference in that, in business, let's say,
Sure.
And I think in certain ways, it took a lot for somebody like me to really push myself into doing jazz in an adventurous way, authentic, yes, but adventurous, like really push yourself into adventuring in. It took some effort because, as you said, the West Coast is, real cool and easygoing, and
Well, it was. I don't know if it's that way anymore exactly. I think it's things have changed here. I mean, even as simple as like when I first got out here in the early 90s, I remember saying to my friend, whoever I was with at the time, I'm walking down the street and I'm like, nobody honks their horns here. I remember that distinctly, and you could jaywalk. Because I was from Chicago, man, and that's, people jaywalked. You could walk out and people would just slow down and let you cross in front of them. In fact, one time I got busted for jaywalking. I was walking with somebody in Santa Monica, and I said, let's cross the street. And they're like, well, come on, let's walk down to that light. And I'm like, come on, you just walk. So I walked out in the middle of the street, and I swear to God, right across the street, there was a cop sitting there on his motorcycle, and he looked at me, and I saw him, and he went, hey, crooked his finger at me. And I went over to him. He goes, where are you from? And I said, Chicago. He goes, you can't do that here. I could write you a ticket right now. So just be careful. Don't ever do that again. So just remember, like, wow, okay, you can't jaywalk in California. But yeah,
that's
things
funny,
have changed out here.
I actually taught some Japanese students in a school here, and we were writing some music, and we wrote a song called Jaywalking.
Really?
Yeah, they don't put, I mean, there's different ways, different areas, different ways. But anyway.
I can't imagine people in Japan jaywalking. I know, they're so disciplined. It's probably not something they've been brought up to do. And in Chicago, people were just rebels without a cause.
Oh yeah, in Boston too.
Yeah.
Boston is crazy. Like huge amounts of people will jaywalk at the same time, right in the middle of, there's a green light and cars are going. Yep. Okay, everybody move move into the middle of the street.
See, when I was in Boston for those years, I didn't have a car, so I really was not aware of it. But I'm sure I jaywalked because I just come there from Chicago. But now in New York, if you jaywalk, you're a moving target. They would like literally like, oh, really? And they would like,
dangerous.
Yeah, it's really, really dangerous to jaywalk in New York.
Do you have anything on YouTube that we could watch and listen to?
Well, I have my own YouTube page, like everybody. So yeah, of course. I don't know how to get you there other than to.
I probably do.
Yeah, if you went to my email, it's in my email signature.
Let me see if I can get this way.
Yeah, if you just
See if I
do a search for me, I guess. I don't know that it'll take you to my page.
Bradley Young, Trial.
I know, right? That's the other
Okay.
Bradley Young. That's not me. Bradley Young, jazz pianist, or what is that? Okay, well, that's a performance video. You could watch part of that. The third thing down.
This? Okay, cool.
I think. I don't know what that is. That might be from a concert I did in Chicago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Can you hear it okay?
Yeah. I mean, you could turn it up a little bit, I guess. Yeah, this was with a trio that I worked with in Chicago. Oh, I'm talking to nobody. Okay.
Nice. Wow. I'm gonna. Yeah, I want to. That was fantastic. I'm going to stop now because I want to keep talking. But yeah, that was really sounded great.
Thank you. That's a long time ago. But I was, I think at that time I had started studying with Terry Trotter. And Terry, of course, turned my head around. I mean, you know how it is. You're blessed throughout your life to meet certain people that just encourage you to just grow and step outside of whatever your box might be. So studying with him, really, such a great guy and a brilliant player. And can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Okay. I just because I'm like because I don't hear any room noise from your place.
My place is very quiet.
Well, now that your significant other's out of there, it's like just and you don't have a dog or a cat or anything, right?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very quiet there. But anyway, so yeah, Terry. I don't know if you know that Terry and his partner Erica, they just moved to Las Vegas. He left LA.
I feel like I heard about that or something.
Yeah, I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and they're very happy. They've got a really nice big house for a lot less money in Vegas, but you know that's a whole nother thing, living in Vegas.
I wouldn't move to Vegas, but you know whatever. But I don't like Vegas.
I'm not a big fan. I mean, as far as going once in a while to just. And I don't gamble, but, when I've gone there on vacation, it's fun to just go see shows. But then again, now I don't know what's going on with those, if they're even allowed. Probably in Nevada they are. I imagine that, Nevada's not California. I mean,
yeah. Although they probably don't want to get people sick, too.
Yeah, but I don't think they've had a lockdown like we've had. I don't think so. I'm not really sure. I'm sort of guessing. Knowing Nevada's history.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw something with him recently. I can't remember. His son was there.
Oh, Jameson. Yeah. Probably went to visit him.
I don't know. It was some kind of live thing, or I don't really remember exactly what it was. Anyway, there's so much. I don't know how people, this sounds funny, but this week, I went down to 3 days a week instead of 6. And all of a sudden, I'm so friggin' busy. Because every day there's so much to do, and plus there's so much going on the internet that I want to listen to and see. All kinds of stuff. And, I don't want to sit here all day long because you could, but, then there's practicing, and I even went into the studio this week, and there's so much to do. Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was just in the studio a few nights ago myself. It's like, it's a good time to do stuff. I actually had a gig on Friday night, which was nice.
Where did you do it? Was it Barbara's place? Or?
No, it was in Huntington Beach at this Italian restaurant called Vittorio's. And it's a very nice little, sort of iconic little old school Italian restaurant. The food is very good. And I worked with a singer named Peggy Perkins. Do you know Peggy?
Sure.
Yeah. So it was fun. We were outside, of course. And she always draws. So we had a nice crowd, and we're outside on the patio, and it was nice. And we were completely unprepared other than her sending me her song list. So we just did tunes, and it was great.
Nice.
Just nice to be out playing. I mean, it was like, wow, it just felt so great to just play,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And you said Mark was watching a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Mark and my friend Will Lyle, the bassist, came over. It was 2 weeks ago now. Just came to our little apartment here, and we set up and we played for a few hours.
Oh, nice.
It was really nice. It was really nice. Should have videoed it, but didn't, or streamed it or something. You know, it's like you think of things afterwards, like, wow, that was pretty good. We should have recorded that, or we should have streamed it. But and then I'm like, well, but if we knew we were recording it, we would have played differently, because you know how when you're recording, you're more careful or something.
Yeah.
So
I have Jeff Richmond lives near me, and we keep wanting to get together, but outside, and the weather's been so sucky, and the air and everything. It's just like, how about this week? Well, it's like 102. You know, it's like we're not going to be sitting outside. So maybe it's going to break this week.
well, and all this craziness with the fires is
Terrible.
the air quality is really shitty.
You know,
And
they're even getting the smoke in England
all over Europe.
from us.
Yep.
It's amazing. And then we had a little earthquake the other day.
I didn't feel that one, but I read about it. It was in San Gabriel, which is where Will lives. Actually, I haven't even talked to him about it. Like, where was he? But it was a 4.6. That's, you know, that's scary.
It was a rolling one, you know, so
Yeah, as opposed to a shaker.
yeah, so the rolling ones are kind of almost fun.
Yeah. I've been through a few. I was here for Northridge, and I'm sure you were as well.
I was.
Were you up in the valley at that time?
I was in Sun Valley, and
What's Sun Valley?
Sun Valley is like Sunland. Sun
Oh,
Valley.
okay. You were
Actually,
close.
it's not Sunland. It's more like the top of North Hollywood.
Okay, you must
So-
have felt it big time.
Felt it really big time, and heard the whole neighborhood, you know, things breaking, dogs barking, car alarms, you know, and yeah. But my mother-in-law and brother-in-laws were living in Sherman Oaks, and they were in an apartment. That was pretty bad, dangerous. You know, they had to crawl. Well, she couldn't, but they had to crawl out the window and then remove stuff for her to get out. Yeah, that was like, you know, right around the Sherman Oaks, Ventura Boulevard area, you know.
Jesus. I can't even imagine. I was in Santa Monica, and it was bad. So where you were, you must have just really got rocked.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. Toby Simmons said she lost everything in the Northridge earthquake. Wow. That's hard.
Yeah,
to-
you know, as
Sometimes
wonderful
I
as
think
California
about
is,
that.
we pay dues here. We
yeah.
pay dues in the fact that we live with this every day. It's kind of like this could be the day that the big one happens. And
I was doing some reading and I was reading Eckhart Tolle, and he was talking about how, you know, mankind's pitfalls include thinking that you are a thing, you're a thing, or you are what you own. I was thinking about a friend of mine, a singer, and she her whole apartment got burned, and her dog got burned. I mean, everything that she ever owned.
horrible.
And, you know, at first it's pretty damn shocking. And then you realize that is not me. You know, I can bounce back. And she did. She totally bounced back. And, and Toby, I'm thinking you too. She said she was at Roscoe and Balboa. Really? Huh. Wow.
Jesus.
Toby's suggesting that you should get in contact with Billy Halting, who's the author of Zero BPM. Do you know that?
No.
It's a music thing, and he has a studio, and he has people play there. It's pretty cool. If you go on my Facebook, you'll see this, or I can tell you again.
I'm sorry, what's Bili's last name? Holting?
Hulting, Hulting.
I'll see if I can find him on Facebook. That name does not ring a bell with me.
Yeah, and it's
Called Zero?
Zero BPM.
0 beats per minute. Okay.
Yep.
Is he a producer or is he a drummer or just a guy with a funny sense?
He might be an engineer with a studio. I've seen these productions, but I actually don't know what he is per se.
Well, I'm sure he'll be glad to hear that. So what kind of, it looks like a very good smoothie. It looks like it's orangish. Is it mango in there? Or?
Mango. I'm a big fan of mango.
Oh, I love mango.
This one has mango and banana and
yeah.
A little bit of apple juice, coconut milk, and carrot juice. I always have carrot juice.
Little carrot. Nice. I'm sure it's delicious.
It's good. And I do this a lot. So usually people see me drinking that on this. It's good because it gives me energy and it's, helps me last.
Yeah, 2 hours of this, man. I mean, these are long little blocks. I've stopped by a bunch of times and I'll listen, but for the people involved to continue to, it's hard enough for me to talk to anybody for 2 hours, and think that I'm even marginally being interesting. So it's hard. Well, we're having no problem here, right?
Right. You are being interesting. And the thing is that, normally I think as what we do, we drive to the gig, we hang out a little bit, we play, hang out a little bit after, and then we go home. So we're not really sitting and talking unless you just are friends with somebody and you say, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee or a bite to eat, or hang out on a boat after the gig drinking.
Yeah. If Mark's still on, I said to him because I just saw him and I said, man, I hope that when things get back to normal, we can do another. That was such a great night. I mean, really, really had such a good time.
Yeah.
The band was wonderful and you sounded great. And just the whole night was just such a pleasure. And then the little treat afterwards of those folks asking us to go hang out on the boat. I'm like, how do you say no to that? Come on, let's go hang out on our boat. Okay, and just sitting out there and having a few drinks, and it was fun. So, yeah, Mark, Roland, if you're still listening.
There's all these comments about how interesting we are. But Roland said, don't sell yourself short, Bradley. You're plenty interesting.
Oh, well, that's very nice, Roland. Thank you very much. It's like not knowing, like I always tell people, like after I play, I'll come off the stage and I seriously have no freaking idea like what I just played. Like while it's happening, while I'm playing, I might go within a solo, like from, I that was cool. I think that whatever I just played, that was cool. That was happening. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, no, that's not exactly what I was thinking I was going to play, but that's what I played. So, and then I come off stage and I'm like, I don't have any idea if what I just played. Like, I don't remember it, Yeah. I might remember little flashes of it. So, and then people come up, of course, and say, wow, you sounded wonderful. I'm like, really? Like, thank you very much. Cause I don't remember exactly. Sometimes I'm thinking like, yeah, I think I played good. Like the night we did that gig, I felt really good about how I played.
Yeah.
But I knew, it's like I'm playing with you. I'm like, I got to be on my A game. So I actually practiced, and I went, I went through some of your charts too, because remember you brought some of those charts and like, I used to do this in a really easy key, but now I do it in B. And so I'm like, okay, I better like go work with this a little bit,
Yeah.
Because when I work with singers, and they say I do this in B, I'm like, no, you don't do it in B. You do it in B flat or in C. B's a note. It's not a key. But,
Yeah, well, I don't.
But
do
it sounded
too many
beautiful.
things
That
in B, but
was.
I do a few things in B, but not many.
But it's a beautiful key, and most people don't play in it because, well, it's a challenging key. It really
Yeah.
is for any instrument. I mean, because if you play a B flat instrument, then that's going to put you in C sharp. And if you're in an E flat instrument, that's going to put you in G sharp. So nobody really likes B. I mean,
Yeah.
But then there are cats that
Yeah, I know.
they don't care. They can play in any key. Any key.
know.
Doesn't make a difference.
That's just such an interesting thing, over the years to see players like when okay, so I'm from Boston. My dad was a sax player. So I grew up going to gigs with him and I was at Berkeley too. So at
Sure.
Berkeley, especially at that time, I think part of the teaching was still from the old school, which was you play Girl from Ipanema, you play it in every
All 12
key.
keys, of course.
Right. And then I came here and it actually was a problem for people to play in my key. And I just didn't get it. I was like, I don't get it. You're supposed to be able to play in any key, right?
Depending upon where you were educated and how much the teacher or the curriculum at Berkeley, like obviously they stressed, learn your circle of fifths and learn to play based on the Roman numeral analysis instead of thinking, well, the song is in, let's say it's actually in D flat or F usually, but so you're not thinking about it as this change to this change. We used to do Roman numeral analysis, and that way, if you transpose it to another key, as long as you remembered, it's 2, 5, 1, and then it's maybe the 5 of the 4, well, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And but maybe out here before there were places like, when I first came out here, there was no Musicians Institute.
Yeah.
There was Dick Grove.
Yeah.
I remember Dick Grove, right?
Mm-hmm,
When I first got out here, I heard a lot about him.
Great place, yeah.
Right? And I heard he was a great teacher.
Yeah.
And, but again, coming from the blues background that I did in Chicago, that was not something that I really encountered till I went to Boston, was the whole idea of like, well, you need to be able to play this in any key.
Yeah.
And then when I started working with a lot of singers, and it really becomes obvious that, you really need to be able to play it in any key because singers, can call it. And, like I think you called something that night that was actually an H, which was a very new
That's one of my
experience.
favorites. Yeah.
Or it was H sharp, but it was really interesting.
Also one of my favorite keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
H and H sharp. On my jam session, Billy Kerr.
Yeah, I remember Billy.
He was the member of the band who didn't get paid. He showed up every week, and the reason was to actually stretch and to play all those songs in keys that he wasn't used to playing in.
Sure. I
But he
think
was
maybe I
actually
met
a
Billy
member
at the
of the band.
Sportsman's.
Huh?
I think I met Billy at your gig at the Sportsman's. I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in years. How's he
moved
doing?
A number of years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, he moved to Canada.
Oh, okay.
And he either was from there or he had spent a lot of time there, and his wife too. His wife was also a sax player. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, they had played in some group together that was, I forget the name of it, but it was all saxes, all different size, size saxes and stuff. I mean, there were some huge saxes that you couldn't carry if you really wanted to.
Well, there are saxes that are bigger than a Barry, like a contrabass sax.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is like
Yeah.
ginormous.
Right. I can't even imagine playing that. It must be so hard to
Sure.
play that, to get this air balance,
Sure.
moving through the instrument. Whew.
And it's sort of, an acquired taste to listen to it because it's very, I mean, if you listen to Barry sax, and I love Barry sax, but imagine Barry, like it's 3 times lower, let's say. So it's a very deep, growly sound. Sometimes it's challenging to actually know exactly what notes the player is playing.
Yeah. I was actually kind of dreaming about this guy, but I can't remember his name. I'm going to have to go look in my iTunes and see if I can find him. He's from New York. He's a Barry player. I saw him play at the Blue Whale several times. He's not that old. He's like probably in his 40s or 50s, something like that. Now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was going to take a wild guess and say maybe it was Ronnie Cuber, but he's more our age now. He might even be older than us, but
no, but he's a New York guy, and it's a white guy, and he's just a mofo on the Barry. It's really, really good. Sometimes I get these ideas of somebody I might like to talk with. I found 2 guys recently, I think even this week, just listening. As I said, I've been listening to a lot of different things. And I think I found them, strangely enough, I think it's strange, on LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn I've been a member of for a long time, but when you go to LinkedIn and you accept friends, I would say 90% of them are artists, some kind of artist.
Sure.
And so I found an amazing piano player from France. His name is Frank. Let's see. Here we go. Frank Salem. Did you ever hear that name? Are you there? I think he froze. Frank Salem, really good. Frank Salem. Pretty sure I'm going to write that down. Frank Salem, something like that. Salem, Salam. Oh, he really did freeze. Frank Salem. Pianist from France. I know he froze. Let's see, did he come back? Did he leave and come back? He left. Maybe he's coming back. I hope so. Sometimes it's impossible. Then there's another guy, and I'm inviting him to be on the show. He's really fabulous, Frank. And there's another guy from Brazil, a pianist, Felipe Cota. Gorgeous, really beautiful. So going to try and have those 2 guys on. And I've already, since I'm doing only 3 days a week now the stretch out is longer because I can't have 6 different people on during the week, so I can only have 3. So so anyway, we're into November now. We're into the week of voting, and I was thinking about Bradley. I know, come back. So I was thinking about that, and I'm going to have that week. Voting day is the second day that I'd be on. Tuesday. There's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I booked someone on Monday. That's the day before. And then Tuesday I was wondering about it, but I'm going to have somebody on voting day. I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it'll be it'll be nice to have someone on that day. The day after, I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I think no matter what's happening, I think that we all might need a break. We all might need to stick our heads in the sand. I don't know. You guys should email me and tell me what you think about the day after voting day. I think voting day will be fine, because you can't really watch all day long, and see what's happening. So I think for a few hours it'd be nice, but I'm not sure about the next day after. You tell me. Anyway, I think Bradley, let's call him. Let's just call him. Let's call him on FaceTime. Oops, there he is. Let's see. Are you here? We're just about over.
Okay. We're back. We had to pause for station ID.
We're just about over, but anyway, it's nice to, kind of end off in a nice way. But I was just talking about the first week of November, how my 3 days a week is Monday, Tuesday, which is voting day, and Wednesday. So I'm definitely booking Monday and Tuesday. I just feel good about that. I feel like people will really welcome, a little refreshing, music thing. I'm not sure about the day after.
You're talking about a week of the election, so in a few weeks, right?
Yes, I am. What do you think?
You're going to have your show on election day.
Yeah, because people aren't going to be, necessarily wanting to watch TV all day long. It might be nice for a 2-hour, just refresh, at 12 to 2, but I don't know about the day after.
Voting.
Huh?
Some people might be out voting other than,
Yeah, they'll be out voting and then they can come back and,
Sure.
It just might be nice, actually. Well, what do you think about the day after?
That would be a definite, because a lot of people will want to come and talk about the results and what that means. Like, if anything is going to actually change, or if things are going to go back to normal, or, this is a strange place to end, but I think that no matter who wins, we're in trouble. That's just my predicament. My prediction is that, because we're so polarized over this thing now that, let's say if Trump wins, the left is going to go nuts. And if Biden wins, then the Trump people are going to go nuts. So
yeah.
Let's not end there, though. Let's think of something positive to talk about for the last few minutes here.
But do you think that I should have music on that? This?
On the Wednesday after?
Yeah, or should I just kind of let people just...
Oh, you could go either way with it, but I think it would be an interesting show. Also, depending upon, you should have like a bunch of guests that day, and like have everybody just talking heads and like talking about their opinions, and I'm sure there'll be some arguing and yelling and screaming. It could be great, unless you make sure that you only invite whoever won. Invite people that that are fans of that guy. So
Oh boy.
That's carefully.
Yeah, that'll be really okay. Well, anyway, let's see. Let's see. For those of you who are saying no politics, the thing is, we're not talking about specifics. We're talking about politics because it's real. And, so to say kind of a general viewpoint, I really don't mind. And so I generally hardly any of these conversations have not really talked about specific people. So it's fine. Fine with me, because this is reality. It is going on and it's not going to go away. And just because we have these wonderful music conversations, this lifts us up out of the murk, but it's still real. By the way, Roland said he once asked Ernie Watts what his favorite key was, and he looked at me as if I was an alien and answered me, all keys are good.
Yeah. But there's only 12 of them, just like there's only 12 notes. And just think about the amazing, just the fact that there are so many different styles and genres of music, and so many, we're talking about billions of different songs, compositions, things that have been all based off of just 12 notes.
Yeah, yeah.
And 12 key centers. That's mind-boggling. It really is.
I know.
I don't know if you want to leave it there or if we can talk about something else for a few minutes.
Well, hold on. I'm just kind of...
You're looking at comments, so people have actually been listening to this. Well, that's amazing. Because I'm not seeing anything. From my end, I have no idea who's been here and who's been listening to this scintillating conversation that we've been having the last couple of hours. And I'm sorry about that break. I was saying to you, by the way, when I lost you, I'm like, uh-oh. Can you hear me? Because you were frozen. And you were frozen, and it was just like one of these moments where you were like, so I don't know. Anyway, I lost internet connection for those couple
Well,
minutes.
we spoke about you behind your back.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not used to that already.
Well,
he's really weird, isn't he? I mean, he's weird.
I do want to take this moment to say thank you so much for coming on. And as we said along the way, 2 hours, it kind of goes fast, when you're having a good conversation, doesn't it?
It really did. There were no flat spots. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And of course, I appreciate you inviting me.
Well, I appreciate you showing up, and really appreciate the hearing you play with your trio, and the Boogie Woogie was really fun. So it was really great. I might just put it on now as I bop around the house afterwards.
It's fun stuff.
I do want to tell people that who's on tomorrow and the next day is, tomorrow. Do you know Scott Robinson? The multi-instrumentalist?
What does he play?
Well, he focuses on on woodwinds, but excuse me, he is a multi-instrumentalist. He can play everything. And
He's one of those guys.
yeah,
I hate him already.
I know. He's really brilliant. And then Tuesday, the jazz harpist Carol Robbins.
Okay. Yeah,
You don't know her,
familiar with
probably.
her either.
She's huge in this city as far as like studio stuff. And she plays with Billy Childs in that group. If you've ever seen that group,
No, but of course I'm familiar with Billy.
the small chamber orchestra. She plays with him. She's a wonderful jazz player.
Would you like
And
to take a
of
little
course
sip of your smoothie there before you?
My cough, is that what you said?
Well, yeah. Why don't you take a drink?
Oh yeah. I have this chronic cough. So I take these lozenges, which usually stop the cough when it's happening.
Yeah, we've talked about it. The air quality out here has got to be. It's not helping any of us that have an inclination to have upper respiratory shit going on. I mean, I haven't been going out a lot. We've been sort of, since this whole thing started, obviously, where none of us are really going out a lot, but, it's probably best to stay indoors and keep your air on and keep changing your filter. That's key. We just bought a whole box of filters on Amazon because sometimes you forget. And we took our filter out and it was just gross. It's really dirty.
That's true. And also, we've been redoing our kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of dust.
All that particulate matter in the house, so that's not good.
Yeah, but we're past most of that part of the redo. Toby is going to send you a link to the 0 BPM.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And,
Toby, are we friends? Toby and I on Facebook? I don't
I
know.
don't know. Toby, are you friends with Bradley on Facebook? But she'll find you. She'll find you on your website or something, right?
Oh, it's a girl, Toby. Okay.
Yes.
I have one of my best friends, a guy friend that I've known since I was 15. His name is Toby.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's one of those names that it goes both ways. Like Shirley, you know.
Surely you just.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't. Don't call me Shirley. I love those movies. The Naked Gun movies.
All right, Bradley. So have a great day in sunny
We're off
California.
to Orange County. Jenny and I are going to, it's her dad's, I believe his 78th birthday. So the whole family will be there and
Oh,
have a nice meal and have a couple of margaritas. It's going to be fun. So,
that's
thank you very
great.
much.
I'm actually going to see my grandchildren
Oh,
hang
nice.
out outside. They put a little pool up and
Sounds great.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's too hot out there today. I don't know. I haven't been out yet. Have you?
No.
Okay. Well, let's hope that it's not like 115.
Let's
We're both
hope.
going to be hanging outside.
Okay, man. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you so much. This was a gas. Thank
Everybody take good care and, you know,
stay safe. The new
yeah,
mom of
safe
our
and
age.
keep positive thoughts and really it's got to work on positive thoughts. They don't just naturally occur. So just keep positive, read, watch lots of nice stuff on YouTube and stuff.
Stay off
and-
social media.
Yeah.
I mean, other than this, you know, skip past all the arguing and yelling and screaming and listen to some great music.
Yeah.
It's always good. We didn't get to talk about any of your myriad of recordings that you've done. How many CDs do you have out? Like 20 or something like that? Seriously.
17.
There you go. And the one that I heard recently, the one with Bevan, what a brilliant, it's a great record, and his arranging and his playing he's a superb piano player.
He's pretty brilliant.
He's
Yeah.
pretty brilliant.
Yeah, he is brilliant. He did some stunning arrangements on that one. My
Yep.
favorite one is with the Benny Maupin and Fish to Birds, my vocal group.
Yeah.
We sang a Benny Maupin song, improvising, and Bevan took it and he made it into 3 movements and arranged, and then we had Benny play. It was amazing. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorites on the record. Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
We talked for an hour about Benny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful player. Yeah.
Totally beautiful.
Well,
All right, Bradley,
to expand
darling.
next time we do that, we'll have to do a 2.5-hour show.
Okay.
Because I feel like I'm just getting warmed up. You know, like it's like the third set.
See that?
Yeah. So, but anyways, very nice. And very sweet of you to invite me. And I guess I'll see you soon, hopefully in person.
Okay, and keep sending those videos. And
I shall. Yes.
okay.
All right, dear. Thank you so much.
Bye, sugar pie.
Okay. See you soon.
Bye
Love
bye.
you.
Love you too.